I'm here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. There have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve.
Hello pals, welcome back to the channel. So, this is a new one for me. I've never done an interview on my channel before. So, to do my very best Jimmy impression from the UAP files, the following is an interview with Joyce Vernon, also known as my mum. She is a psychic medium, a healer, a remote viewer, a psychometrist, all-round weird, spooky person, and still manages to be normal and down to earth at the same time. She lives in Majaca in Spain after a very, very interesting life and career, which has taken her all over the world and working with the police and all sorts of amazing stuff. And so I thought, since she's also seen UAP, it would be the perfect person to have interviewed on this channel, especially in the Psychics and Sources series. So I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of psi ability right now. If you look at those little buttons that YouTubers always go on about, when I say the subscribe button or the like button, hopefully that worked and I didn't look stupid. But I hope you enjoyed the interview. Let's get into it. Hello, Mum. How are you doing? This is definitely the first time that we've tried this because I didn't cock the audio up the last time.
I'm doing very well, thank you, son.
Excellent.
Apart from some hurt myself when I went down to the beach today, but hey ho.
Oh, what a dreadful pity, eh? Yeah, considering that the sky's the colour of porridge here, and we've had such immensely crazy weather that yeah, I don't feel too much sympathy for you. So I've got some questions from me. If there's anything you feel inspired to just go off on one about, then go for it. And then I've got some questions from our wonderful viewers. It still feels surreal saying that, but some of the awesome people from the Discord and other people that have left questions on YouTube for you. So it's nothing scary.
Hi, Dr. Jess.
Oh,
speaking of the Discord, hi, Dr. Jess.
Bloody crawler, keeping him with the doctors. So, the best way to kick it off then, how would you describe what you do? Because I really appreciate the way that you don't use all the wizardiness in what you do. So I won't put words in your mouth, but how would you describe that?
Okay. To me, it's a normal thing. It's not something, some people think that you have to sort of go into a trance or something. I just listen to the little thoughts that come into my head, really, because people think that psychics hear voices. And I can promise you that not all of us do. When your person in spirit has passed and they want to let you know, and I hate that word spirit because, again, it's wafty. It implies that they're not the same as us, and they're absolutely the same as us, just in the next stage of life. And that's how I see it. It's just a transformative step. Very much like if you've watched Scrooge at Christmas, Christmas Carol. He's in the room with Bob Cratchit. He can hear everything, see everything. They can't see him. It's exactly the same with our loved ones when they've died. So I was brought up in a family where that was normal. The door would open in the lounge, for example, and my dad would just say, "Don't worry, it's only Charlie," Charlie being the ghost, which is a guaranteed way to put your 5-year-old not worrying. Like, oh, a ghost, right, okay. What freaked me out with that is as I got older, I was about 13, and it happened. And he said, "Oh, it's Charlie again." And I said, "Well, why don't we just ask Charlie to close the door?" And the door closed. So it's as weird as that. But even if people don't believe in what I do, which is fine, they've all heard of intuition and believe in intuition. And that's just when something comes into your head, you don't know where it's come from, and it works. Like something like just jog my memory, and people say, "Well, I've just remembered this," but no, that's just because your mum's just said, "Don't forget, you need to do that." And the same way that I had with the detectives when I worked for the police, They were very, very cynical, as I would expect them to be, very professional and doing a tough job. Um,
Well,
and I explained to them, well, you
sorry,
believe in hunches, which is the same thing.
not to butt in, but that's a really good way to. That's a really good sort of slice of your career doing this. So why don't you just quickly give us the 5 minute recap on when you worked with the police?
Bloody hell. Edit that out. It's nothing I wanted to do. I was resident psychic for a big hotel chain in Cheshire, um, and did a private reading at the hotel one evening for a young lady. Got some messages through. She was adamant that this guy was still alive. Basically, it was an ongoing thing. And I had a phone call the next day from police of this particular area. And my immediate thought was, oh my God, they're going to think I've done it. So I figured, okay, they're going to be skeptical. They're going to think I'm up to something. So I invited them to my house to see me on my own territory, to see that I hadn't got black candles, I hadn't got goats' heads everywhere. They're all hidden under the bed. Joking. And became firm friends with them. So that's it.
But they were quite skeptical when they first arrived, weren't they?
Super duper skeptical. Super duper skeptical. One person, the main detective who you met, whose name shall stay private.
Oh yeah, of course.
He actually wrote an excerpt for the book, describing his thoughts. And also, he won't mind me saying, because he's given it for the book, of course, that in that first meeting, they separated. There was one policeman over there and one over here, because they're trained in body language and everything. And they're obviously thinking I'm the biggest scammer on the planet, albeit 5 foot tall. And yeah, I just gave him some information from his dad who'd passed, and that just completely changed him. It rocked his little boots. So, and good as gold, as soon as he saw that there was something else and I made sense to him, it kind of opened it up. And that's that, basically.
That's fine.
Obviously, when it's things like that, you don't want to go into personal details with people. It's not right.
No, of course. Well,
so that's how I ended up doing that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So on the subject of that, because it's very in the UFO UAP world, they've managed to drag the field out of the mud of people throwing hubcaps and frisbees and and this kind of telling stories,
which I'm sure some of them were.
Oh, 100%. But since like the Tic Tac, and they've got admirals and fighter pilots now, whereas we used to have like stereotypically hillbillies and stuff like that, people that live in a cabin in the woods saying they've had visitation. So why do you think there's still so much stigma around what you do? Because it is such an integral part of what this phenomena seems to be.
Oh, well, that's a very simple answer, because for Joe Public, and that's not being patronizing either, normal people their loved ones are so precious to them that they're like, they're challenging you, and they're almost angry. Like, why is my loved one talking to you and not me? And then I can quietly talk them through, well, yeah, but they do, and this is what happens, and you can expect this, and you talk them through it. And then they go away feeling okay. So there's that side of it where they've been indoctrinated, really, that when you're dead, and that's it. My attitude to people that challenge me in a rude way about that, because they're entitled to their opinion, is I just say, well, when you're dead and you realise you're wrong, don't forget me, because I'm the only one that will be able to talk to you. And that kind of diffuses the situation.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though. People having like a latent defensiveness about, I don't want to admit that, my parents or loved ones are there. I hadn't considered that before. That's very interesting. It's like they already start left of the neutrality because it's a very personal, vulnerable thing, isn't it?
It is indeed. The hardest ones to do are when it's the loss of a child, especially if it's the man that's come, because the male thing is to protect their wives and their kids and protect people, right? And if that child's died, then all right, everyone feels sorry for the woman, gives them loads and loads of sympathy, but dad's gone cry in the shower and stuff. So, I've dealt with people where they've come in and they turn the chair and body language is like this, and it's such, again, there's testimonies on things we've done with that. I'm not certainly not pimping for trade or extorting any
No,
ounce of
no, 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 no.
glory from that grief, But when it comes to the UFO stuff, um, the remote viewing is what they're interested in, which is exactly what I did with the police. They gave me something to hold. It's called psychometry as well, by the way, where you can hold something and get information about the person that owned it. I have people, as you know, phone me up and say, "My cat's gone, do you know where it is?" And I tell them where it is. The next minute, cat's home and everything's all right. And that's not something that I tried to develop either. It's just, it instantly comes in my head. That's where it is and that's where they look, as you experience with your friend's camera.
Yeah. So that was a cool story. So my friend's photographer, and she'd lost her lens and couldn't find it. So as I've done many a time when I've lost my car keys or whatever, I just sent Mum a message and was like, right, Emma needs this lens. Where is it? And you said it was in a little bag on the left-hand side of a shelf, I think, or and I told her, and she's like, "Oh no, I've looked there." And then like 10 minutes later, the fact that she knew that there was a there in the first place was funny. But then like 10 minutes later, she's like, "Oh yeah, I had another look and there it was." I had one like that with my car keys. So I used to have a rally car, not that that's relevant, and couldn't find my keys, which essentially immobilized my car. Mum said they were under the passenger seat. I looked about 4 times, wrote off the whole thing as like, well, they're not there, so this has obviously not worked. And then they were actually in the wire under the seat. I'd thrown them on the floor and they'd bounced up and got stuck under the seat, so they were literally under the seat. Anyway, I digress. So what was key to developing your ability?
Well, I didn't. That's the point. That's my whole point. With me, right? So just a little bit of background for the people watching, because we know the story. We've got to clarify it. So basically, I'm one of 8. My mother was Scottish, and her family, including her father, but her sisters as well, they were all what they called healers. My granddad was a shunter on the railway, and people would come and knock on the house at night, the door, that is, not just knock on the house, and say, can you fix my back, or can you fix my shoulder? And he would put his hands on them, and that it would get hot, and they would have ease of pain. But that's gone through the ages. There's always been people that could do that. Hence the old, Mum, kiss it better and it feels better. Well, it's just how it is. Okay? It's a form of energy thing, I think. So I was brought up in a household where they talked about psychics, and I had an auntie who was famous in Scotland for talking to the dead, who I thought it was all a bit weird, to be honest. But I grew up in that environment, and what stopped me believing in that big time was when my first husband tried to murder me, and I had to run away at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't because I was a bad cook, because I'm a good cook. And I remember with having a 2-year-old in a buggy, and it was cold and dark, and me looking up at the sky and saying, if there's anybody up there, you're all bastards, because I thought there can't be anybody looking after me. It's all false, what I've been hearing about all my life, because why would this happen? And it wasn't until years and years later that I realised how much help I was getting that night. And it kind of, so I wanted to stop believing it, and I was adamant that it was just intuition and there's nobody up there helping us. So I've come to this through not wanting to believe it, not because I wanted to believe it. And there's a big, big difference. So I've never tried to study it. I just always when you've gone through a situation like that and you've had to stand on your own 2 feet and had nobody there for you, you become very self-reliant. But that meant I listened to myself, but it wasn't myself. That's how you get messages a lot of the time. You just get this little thought. You know, if you've ever been driving, any of you, and it suddenly comes into your head, you need to slow down, there's something around the corner, and you slow down and there's nothing around the corner. Well, that's because the baby elephant's crossed the road and it's in the bushes and you haven't written your car off. So it's whether you believe things like that, you know, but people say we have a gut instinct or that kind of thing. So that's different ways that upstairs can influence how you think. Whether you believe in it or not is irrelevant. The fact is, you can believe that your brain's not going to make your feet go left, right, left, right, left, right without you thinking it, but it does. It makes you blink without you knowing what's going on. So it's not something I consciously wanted to do. It was just something I was doing and thought everybody did.
Very good. I know there's always that one of that, because we're so habit forming, aren't we, as a species, and we just take things for granted when you get repeatability. And the amount of times that people pick their phone up and they've been thinking of somebody and that person will message, or they'll pick it up as it rings, or when they're in public and a stranger will walk in and they'll think, well, I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like some of this is body language and environmental stuff seeping in, but I think a lot more of it is extra cognitive information. So it's very, very interesting. So one question then.
You see,
Sorry,
let me just give a bit of input on that one that came into my head. I just think that from babies, you know, you can tell some toddlers will go to you straight away. They just take to you. Animals are the same. And other times they just won't. You know, the kid in the supermarket's lost its mum. You've got all the adults. Oh, come on, and they're having none of it. And then there's just one person that they'll trust. It's always me. I always get Down syndrome people. I love them because they are just pure love. And they recognize your energy and they'll come over and give you hugs and everybody's saying, oh, I'm sorry. The point is that it's part of our own senses, is how we suss people out. We'll meet somebody and say they're on the same wavelength as us. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So you've seen where we've met people who are Spanish, where my Spanish is a bit rubbish, poco rubbish. And it doesn't matter because you'll just give them a hug and they start crying because they feel safe with you and stuff. So it's your vibration. And I think that affects everything, including little people up there that come in little spacecraft. I think they're looking for that kind of vibration. This is a nice person or this is a warlike person. Depends whether I've had 2 gins or whether I haven't had a gin and tonic, whether I'm...
Something that you said that I've always remembered is that you were talking about what we refer to as spirit at the time, but I think it applies to the UAP thing, is that sort of some of us, it's like being in a dark church, but some of us have a little candle, and then they can sort of spot us and go, oh, hello, that one's interesting. And that seems, I mean, from the sightings that I had, I can only imagine that was what took place. I must have looked interesting when I was doing because it was like a call and response thing, but and not to hijack the conversation onto me. But so is there anybody in the world of UAP that kind of interests you then, that you, because I know I've dragged you down the rabbit hole since I had my sighting and got interested in it, and now bizarrely find myself in this position. So who do you find credible or interesting? I won't ask you to comment on the negative side of things.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that you've shown me pictures of that don't like him. He's a bad guy. Not that I'm judgmental. I just, don't like that person. Russell Targ, I think he's an amazing person. I love him to bits. Jeffrey Mishalov, I could just cuddle him forever. He'd be a bit smelly by the end of it, but I think he's a lovely guy. I'm not sure. David Rush, nice guy. But I couldn't work out his energy at first until you told me that he was a bit autistic or something, um, something along those lines. But then again, when I'm seeing him on the TV, he was under immense pressure. And obviously thinking of every single thing that he could say and couldn't say. I mean, I'd be hopeless, wouldn't I? Because he has to get permission. I just blab everything out. I'd have forgotten what he told me. But there's a lot of people, but I also, with me, because I didn't come at it from me, I came at it because you were half interested in it. Um, and I've had some weird experiences. And then as soon as you start coming, then we start getting characters coming into the room and we have all sorts of information. But that's a whole new video.
Yeah. Well, I want to get onto that in a little bit, but you know, it's just because for me, obviously, I've got my people that I've gone like, oh my God, this person's brilliant, and then, you know, like your Russell Targs and that and Pat Price and stuff. So I was just interested if there were people.
Who's the McGonagall guy? He's amazing.
Joe McGonagall, yeah.
Yeah.
He was another
great
one.
bloke. Now I really like him. I like him because he's got a no nonsense attitude. He doesn't set himself up to be the prince of anything. He just tells it as it is. Plus, he's from a big family, so I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. Can't be, because no, I'm just joking. But no, I don't.
Extremely gifted.
Yeah. Well, of course, but he didn't set out to learn it.
No.
It's something he could do. That's my point. And when you can do it, you don't realise. You know, I'm sure if from a child you'd levitated around the living room, you wouldn't have known that that was weird until you saw that other kids didn't do it.
Well, his story was really interesting. He was in the army, and he kept getting sort of like, oh, don't go that way, don't go this way, and then there'd be booby traps and stuff like that. Or like it got to a point where if he left a room, people would leave the room as well, just in case a mortar was on its way and stuff like that. So in the end, no, seriously, that's what he says. And it got to a point where he got recruited. His post came up and you have to apply for a specialization or something like that. And the thing he wanted to specialize in had just been cancelled. And I'm sure his story was they got him to throw a dart at a dartboard. It went in the black outside. And the guy that was a recruiter was like, that's what we were looking for, you're in this, and he ended up being pulled into the bloody that program and ended up at SRI. And I'm not sure whether initially, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but initially he got asked, because Russell Targ used to get people coming to inspect what they were doing, and being the legend that he is, he would just say, well, I'll show you how to do it, and then I haven't got to convince you. And Joe, when he went along,
and then he showed people how easy it was to do it.
Yeah, and when Joe went, he was
when
phenomenally gifted at it, and then ended up being one of the most gifted guys, along with Ingo Swan and Pat Price and whatnot. But that's really interesting. So now's probably a good juncture then to talk about your sightings, because I know you've already done it in my orb video, but I think only about 12 people have watched that, so it's probably a relevant time to hear that back from you. So because my first sighting was essentially what we now realize is CE5 or Mission Rama, where you kind of meditate and see stuff, but obviously you know that. And you've seen orbs, haven't you? So
I have indeed.
Just whistle us through what happened when you saw them, and
so
how it differed from
first time. It was about October, November. We were waiting for the planets to line up, because I'm weird like that. It's one of these where they say, oh, it happens very rarely, but it happens every 3 years or something. It was clear night where we were. It was like 300 meters to the sea. Terrace, no lights in front of us that were affecting anything. And one apartment block. And here, everything's like made out of little white shoe boxes. Think of somebody's just tipped some Lego up. That's what it's like in Spain, basically. White building. And I saw this little orange thing coming along at an equal distance from the roof, but not very fast. I pointed it out to a friend um, who said, it's a helicopter. And I said, well, it's not a
Well,
helicopter
when you say
because
thing,
we'd
just
hear
because
it.
somebody will be crying if I don't ask you to just clarify what thing means. So it was little orange. How would you
It
describe it?
was orange. It was orange and round. No sound at all. And it was between me and the sea, so a couple of 100 meters away. Absolutely no sound. The lights didn't change. This person said it's a helicopter. There was no sound. And trust me, we get helicopters across a lot here because across the sea from me, I'm right on the south coast of Spain, is Morocco. And so we've always got people sending little bundles of things across that make people smoke and things. So it's constantly monitored by the Guardia and stuff. So I knew it wasn't that. Then he said it was a plane, and I said, well, no, it isn't because planes have got little flashing lights and stuff. And again, that's too low to be a plane. It looked as if it was probably 20, 30 feet above the building. And he went back in, which was great. And I just looked at it and said to it, it was now opposite me and it had stopped. Um, so literally it was on eye level, a couple of 100 meters away. And I just looked at it and went into my spooky mode, as you like, and when I'm doing that, I think in my head. I think the questions in my head. I don't speak out loud. So I just thought towards it. Well, who are you then? And what are you doing here? And immediately it shot up at a hell of a rate at like 90 degrees, just gone. And I thought, okay, that was interesting. And took no more notice of it because what I also do, and don't forget with my past, I thought it was a natural thing. I always assess something or anybody as is this a threat?
Mm-hmm.
And at no point did I feel a threat. In fact, it made me laugh. So I had the impression that if it was a conscious thing, that it was amused by me asking, what are you doing here? What do you want? And I saw exactly the same thing about a month later, about half a mile from where I was. And the same thing happened. It was hovering near to a lighthouse, which was a newly commissioned lighthouse on the top of the mountains. I was looking outside at the stars and things because that's what I do. And again, I saw it and I thought, well, hang on, you're not supposed to be there. What are you doing now? And it went straight up again. So it's almost like, that thing, if you perceive something, does it exist before you look at it?
Schrodinger's cat. Yeah,
Like
Schrodinger's orbs.
all of that. Yeah, all of that. The double slit experiment and all of that stuff. So that was interesting because it's exactly the same. And it's not as if I was expecting to see it or sitting outside hoping to get it.
Mm.
It was just as I was there, and then I saw it. And then since then, from my terrace here, I had two friends come over to see the full moon, and we were super lucky because it was coming up out of the sea, which is an amazing thing anyway. I mean, there's me sitting in the living room, and it's coming up. So how lucky am I?
That's the
And we
moon,
both saw
not.
this.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said we were watching it come up out of the sea, and you're talking about the moon, not
Oh,
like
beg your pardon.
Yeah,
The moon. It was the new moon, which was an amazing thing to see. It's one of these where they say it's a red moon or something, strawberry moon. And across from me again is another apartment block, again, same thing with the white thing. And this was bright blue, like, those little tiny fish you get in the fish tanks, it neotetrons or something. So that electric-y blue colour. And it was a tic-tac shape, but it wasn't moving at all. And I showed it to my friend who said, oh, yeah, I can see it. Her daughter could see it. So we're both watching, all of us, rather, all three, watching it for a good 5 minutes. And it just disappeared. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't fade. It just vanished.
Mm.
So that's pretty cool.
Very. I mean, when I was... So, for the people watching, Mum and I have done CE5, and I've tried to do it here when I'm not there, if that makes sense, to very, very mixed results. But
You should say you should say there for people that maybe don't know what C5 is.
CE5, yeah. So it's when you
Yeah,
try and initiate contact. So people meditate or
there you go.
just sit quietly and sit positively, and then
Yeah,
sometimes, if you're very lucky, you'll see a flash or a craft or something like that.
yeah.
And I've done that here, and it's worked, which is why I am so far down this rabbit hole. But when I did it with Mum in Spain, it was bananas. We saw all sorts of stuff flashing. But the reason I was chirping up is because I saw an orb in Spain as well last time I was there, and it was one of these orange
Hmm.
ones like you described, and it was just going along down the top of the mountaintop, a bit like a Chinese lantern. But I could see that from my bed, and I was thinking like, oh bloody hell, what's that then? And then as soon as it dawned on me, like it's not the ISS, it's not a satellite, because I can see landscape behind it. I can see that mountain ridge, which is like 30 meters from my bedroom tops. Shit, I better get my phone. I need to record. And then it just went. It
Yeah, yeah,
just gone,
yeah.
dematerialized. So yeah, it was really really interesting. It's a really interesting place, but then it is by the Med, and
I
there's a
don't
lot
I
of,
don't know if they dematerialize or just go somewhere else. I don't know.
or just go
Like
into
the
a frequency that we can't see, which is a very interesting thing I've been looking at the
exactly,
moment.
exactly.
So, on that subject, then, how would you say? It seems to me like it's the same telephone, but a different. Like spirit is one thing, and that's your daily bread, but then this phenomena seems to be able to communicate on the same bandwidth, for want of a better word.
Yes. You see, somebody said to me, "Do you think it's the same thing? Spirit and these beings, entities, whatever you want to call them, are the same thing?" And no, I don't. No, I don't. I think that it's just um, when you die, you are you've just like got out of your body, like getting out of your coat. Um, you see your dead body. We know that people die, so it's not such a big shock to you. It is if you didn't think there was going to be anything, and suddenly you're looking at your body and you think, "Oh my lordy, I'm dead." Then, what next? You still have that loving connection to your people that you've left behind. You want to let them know you're okay. They also still feel emotion, so that's when they're sad because they've left you. You're sad because they've left you. And when they come towards you to try and reassure you, you don't just have tears coming from here where you've thought about it and it's made you sad, because that's how we release emotion. It's great that your brain wraps it up into a little droplet of water and that's how you release emotion. It's amazing. Um, but you also feel their emotion. So that's why the tears come from here and whoosh up and you feel an innie and you don't know why you're crying. Well, you've never you've never cried in your life without knowing why you're crying until you've lost somebody. So you're feeling that in your heart energy, and that's why it moves you so much. So that's a different thing. I think that's a way that we have as humans to communicate. Okay, that's what I think we've all got. That's why it's the sixth sense. It's not number one, it's number six. So it's dead normal, pardon the pun, for us to have this ability. But I think that's their way of communicating with us because we do this in thought. So they put thoughts in our head and we can have conversations with them on our head. And that's you've experienced me doing that with some detail that I had no idea about that you said, oh yeah, that's so and so and so and so. And we then went on to find out. And that's the way I want it. I want to stay like that. Because if you showed me more stuff and I got more into it, then that might be me misinterpreting something.
It might color the.
Oh, that sounds like so and so. It's the
Mm,
same
mm.
when I've given people, I'm not a doctor and I always tell them that, but I'll physically feel anything that's happened to the person that's passed or that they've got. And when I describe it to them and they say, oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is, that's it's not really a telepathic, it's not really empathic either, I don't think. It's just a way of feeling stuff. So if you're more trained into your mediumship, or more at ease with it, for that matter. It's the same with you, with all your flipping guitars. When you first had one, I just wanted to strangle you with it. But after about 6 to 8 weeks, it's like, is that you playing, or are you listening to something? Because you were so good at playing like Hendrix, who's a god, obviously. And so you trained that part of your brain. So you developed your ability. You can develop your sense of taste if you want to be a better chef. So this is just another thing that you can develop. And I think that they know, because they're aware of what we're capable of. So I think they're just tapping into that area of our brain. So we're not freaked out. We're probably getting messages and we don't even know it's from them.
Mm. Yeah. Well, Tesla used to say, why would I bother remembering anything when I can it's all just there and I'll just access it when I need it anyway. So, and Jack Sarfatti, when we were speaking, I'd sound like I'm name dropping, but when we interviewed Jack Sarfatti, he was...
You should mention these people. You should be honoured that they wanted to be on your show.
Couldn't believe it. Big thanks to Jimmy, that one. But he was saying how it's basically it's just quantum entanglement. It's a quantum transfer of information, which is, because it's superliminal. Then that's, if you're piloting a vehicle, for example, that's doing 18,000 miles an hour, then it's no use thinking, oh, I'll move, and going through a joystick and stuff. All this stuff is just happening instantaneously, and it was very interesting. I mean, he got into time travel and retrocausality and all sorts, but it all seems to be, like Gary Nolan says, the highest form of technology is biology, and if you imagine going beyond wires and communication to just immediate communication telepathically, then that is logical if it can be encouraged. So on the subject of technology, go on.
Just let me interrupt you again, because when we were talking about this, just having that information there, remember when the little boy went missing in Canada, and I was asked, well, what's happened to this little boy? I saw exactly what had happened and said where I thought this was going to end up, and it did. So that was thousands of miles away.
Well,
so
I know that, but
as humans, we need to realise that it's the physical body that has to get from A to B. The mental body, if you like, the you-ness of it, you can be wherever you want in the world without being unconscious on the floor or in a trance.
Yeah, very good.
So there's a lot we need to learn.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of technology, one of our Discord friends asked if you think AI, because AI can be trained to think beyond human limitations and repeat what's good. So do you think eventually an AI will be able to connect to this psychic field, or whatever wavelength it is?
I think it would be very interesting, because the AI is limited by the person doing the program.
Yes.
So how interesting would it be if there was somebody that knew about this, that was able to, and I'm not bloody volunteering, but if you're limited by if you believe that there's no such thing, then I don't see any reason why they can't do it on one hand. But again, I feel the emotion and the physical thing and the empathy and the understanding. And I don't know if AI can do that. But then I'm an old lady that doesn't know anything about AI, other than Terminator. Great film. So I don't know. I think it comes down to what skills you give this thing. Because apparently they can pick anything up. They can mimic emotions, but mimicking emotions isn't the same as being able to do this, because I think emotion is required with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more we learn about AI, the more we're learning about ourselves and what consciousness is, and you can. I
think what's interesting is that we're going to end up learning from them by the mistakes we may make. Like, oh wow, we didn't think of that, because we are limited by what we believe is possible. They aren't, and they work out logic. I think if we're thinking, well, we can teach them to do this and we can teach them to do that, but can we teach them to feel love? I don't know. I mean, I like the film I, Robot with Will Smith. I think it's cool. But he's asking the questions. Does this mean we're friends? He doesn't feel friendship to him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. AI, they should be able to, if it's just down to communicating on a certain vibration, which it probably is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good, good. So another question from the Discord is, so this is somebody that sees orbs and gets a feeling, goes outside, and there they are fairly regularly.
Yeah.
But he has
Yeah.
asked, I wonder why UAP will appear in the sky when I ask, but they never seem interested in interacting beyond that or like escalating that contact.
Maybe, well, okay. So again, I can only answer with my limited knowledge, obviously, because that's all I can do. I'm not going to make it up. But maybe some of the orbs that we see aren't actually conscious. Haven't got little people in that can think, oh, hey, up there's somebody looking at me. Maybe it's a signal you send out, like we send out a I'm friendly, don't bite me to a dog, and the dog picks up on that. You're asking to see something, and you're a frequency. That thought frequency means that you're giving permission, but it isn't able to communicate with you. I don't know. I don't know is the answer to that. What's fascinating is they're using your ability to get a message. So you get the feeling that you want to go outside, and there they are. And it's the same way if you want to try it yourselves, just take your watches off and see how many times you just feel, what time is it? And you check your phone and it's 12:12 or 12:21 or 11:11. There's people that sell books on angel numbers and all of that, which I don't know. To me, it's just like upstairs having a game with you, because they still do it with me now, where I still don't need convincing. But it'll just be, right, okay, I've got the message. I need to pay attention today. And that's how that works. And you were saying before, of course, thinking about somebody and then you hear from them. So I think they maybe put the thought into your friend's head, come outside, and there they are. And maybe you should consider, if he's ever tried meditating, just do a meditation.
Well, that's interesting. And one of the things I've found is that, so the skeptics say, "Oh, why don't they land on the White House lawn?" I shouldn't put a silly voice on because this is how they actually feel. And their argument is, why don't they land? Why aren't there mass sightings? But why do you think it seems to be a very personal thing? So when people do have an experience, it seems to be like 1, 2, 3 groups of people. You know, it isn't like a big spectacle of disclosure from their side. So have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, because from what you've shown me, mass sightings, Phoenix lights, UFOs over the White House lawn. Come on, what do you want? A little brass band played by little Yodas or something? I mean, come on, guys. There's plenty of it. There's plenty of it. What do you actually want? The government are actually saying now that, yeah, they're real, but we want disclosure. You've had disclosure. That's it. It's David Grush. He didn't get put in prison. He actually listened to him at a Congress, and his reputation is solid. So, and look at the torment the poor bloke's had for just telling the truth. So when it comes to these people that say, "When do you think we're going to get disclosure?" I go, well, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want me to pull out? Oh, look, here's a little alien. Like the one out of the belly in the Alien. What, come on,
Yeah.
guys, it's fair.
Yeah. That's a very fair point. I totally agree. I mean, I agree. But I think until people define what disclosure is to them, they're never going to attain it. It's like the war on terror, isn't it?
I don't know if people know what they think. I don't know if people. I would ask the question, well, what would you want? What's your idea of disclosure? Oh, the government's rolled up and say they're there. Well, they have. Now what? Now what do you want?
Yeah.
Well, do you want one to come on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or whatever? I don't know.
You sound like Grant Cameron.
Just...
He was saying like, okay, so you want to know what the military knows? Okay, not very much. Like that, or if they knew, they wouldn't hang out with Chris Bledsoe, and they wouldn't go and knock around with shamans and follow Russell Targ
Yeah,
around, because
yeah.
they want to know what those guys are experiencing. Like, they might have a saucer, but they can't open the door because these guys aren't on that wavelength. So it's very interesting.
You see, I'd like to know. If and if I get abducted by men in black, that's fair dues. I'm not bothered. I just think it'd be interesting to know if there's anybody in the government, in the military, that can connect with them, that's psychic. Are they connecting with them? Because it would appear that they don't want to connect with the military. That's why they're talking to people like Chris Bledsoe, who's a lovely, lovely person, and ordinary people, because it just seems that whatever comes through any film that you've watched, something comes and the Americans want to nuke it or something, or see if they can militarize it. Well, the world isn't just populated by people like that. There's a lot of us that just want to be tolerant and love and kind and look after the planet instead of just making millions of quids out of everything. And if you were an alien species coming and observing all of the living things on this planet, why would you assume that humans are the most intelligent when you've got octopus who are super duper clever, and have been here for millennia and not destroyed their environment at all, can recognize you, can solve problems? I've married guys that can't do that. So seriously, why would we assume that we're the most intelligent species on the planet, and yet we're the ones that are destroying it? Come on, guys, get a grip. So maybe they just don't want to talk to the ones that are damaging everything. Maybe they've been here for ages and they're now getting peed off because, some of them are going to be living under the sea, which I have been told, but again, we won't go too far down that tonight. But they gave me a lot of information on that. But now suddenly we're messing about with that, with ultra low frequency, and it's affecting animals and stuff. I think we're doing an awful lot without thinking what we're doing.
I totally agree.
All.
Yeah.
This world is the most beautiful place, with enough food, fresh water, and space for everybody.
So, have you got any closing pearls of wisdom for anybody that might be interested in developing their own ability or anything like that?
Okay, and then okay. So, just sit nice and quietly sometime, and think about the person that you've lost that you'd really like to speak to. That's all. And don't concentrate. It's all about, if I say to you, Tom, when's your birthday? Well, you know when your birthday is.
Hold up.
Don't give out my personal information on the internet, Mum. This is not cool.
Oh, I haven't told them about the spot on you, Mum.
Anyway, my PIN number is this, and this is my bank account. Yeah, brilliant. Crack on. Yeah.
I just think you just ask that person. Let's say it's your mum. You would just say, right, Mum, think it in your head. If you're there, come and let me feel a sign, and be nice and relaxed, and don't expect anything. And you should feel a slight change on your body. As soon as you get that, again, stay nice and relaxed, and you just say, so I know that's you. Take that off me, and it'll stop instantly. And that's how you'll know you've got a connection. And then just get used to doing that for about 10 minutes every day. But always have in mind who you want to speak to. Don't just say, is there anybody there? Because some of them have got snatchy tails.
Right. Yeah. Don't do the silly stuff like Ouija boards and just shouting in the dark. Hey, anybody there? Which kind of, but I mean, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but do you not see CE5 as a little bit like that? Do you think that's why having the right intent is so important? Because Diana Pazulka is like, Jesus, if you don't understand it, why are you invited, just opening the door? Whereas she doesn't have that kind of faith.
If you're not the sort of person that's going to go and beat up homeless people, nobody would ever be able to persuade you to do it. It just wouldn't, you wouldn't do it. Okay? If you're an angry person and you've just been restraining that back, then they can persuade you to do anything. And that's the same with some of these unwanted people that can come through from spirit. That's why you should always know that you ask for somebody that you know and love first. That's the first thing. I was just saying, if you want to learn to develop this in a safe way, then you just think of somebody that you know and trust that's passed, and you quietly think, you're thinking an invitation, like, if you're here, will you please come and connect and let me feel something? And then just quite relax and pay attention to a change that you might feel in your body. Okay. And I would normally give people examples, but I don't want to do that on here in case they say, well, it's auto-suggestion. You said I was going to feel that. So I'm going to leave it to you. But as soon as you're aware of a slight change, all you do is you stay nice and relaxed and say, so I know that's you. Will you take it off me? And they'll take it off you immediately. And that's somebody that wouldn't do you any harm while they were here. So why on earth would they do you any harm when they're not?
Brilliant. Now, I know you're not one of these podcast people that say, in my book, but you have written a couple of books, and I'm not going to shove them down people's necks. But if they want to know a bit more, then they can drop a comment, and I'll leave a link to what that is. But thank you very much. I think that's an awesome introduction to you and your thoughts.
What came into my thoughts today was maybe doing something where if they want to ask me any more questions, then cool. But there's nothing to stop us organising next year a little event where they can come over for maybe a weekend or something, and we'll just have a little bit of a workshop-y thing.
We
meditate
could do some
on the beach.
CE5 on the beach.
Look for CE5 on the beach.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
That would be very cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, that is great. So, what did you think of that? Well, hopefully you got a kick out of it and found it entertaining. That was the idea. And ideally, it shed a little bit of light on a topic which has until now been kind of shrouded in mysticism and hid needless theatrics. So, if you've got any questions for Mum or any comments or anything like that, just drop it down below. She'll be checking them, I'll be checking them, and we'll get them answered at a future point. It may well be something, if this is successful, that we come back to. Who knows? I certainly enjoyed myself. So, yes, she does sell books. Yes, she is a professional medium. No, this is not us advertising for clients or book sales, because, frankly, that takes away and gives the skeptics some food. So it's just not of interest. What the main point of this was to have a nice time, have a brew together, and have a discussion about some really interesting stuff. I hope you agree, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Take care.